With having the best years of his career, 2 all-time great seasons, and very likely to win his second MVP, Nikola Jokic has transcended beyond even the most ridiculous career projections. In fact, he set a new record for highest PER in NBA history, breaking the previous record set by Giannis, coupled with a scoring efficiency that rivaled that of Steph Curry's 2016 season. Jokic also just had 2 seasons of recording win shares per 48 minutes that both registered in the top 15 of all time. He's led the league in offensive box plus minus and overall box plus minus by a significant margin, actually. Now, Jokic has always been the darling of advanced stats, but these past few seasons took it to a whole new level. Despite his individual achievements, the Denver Nuggets are not where they want to be. This was a team that was supposed to be contending for the championship now, but a series of unfortunate events have stunted their progress. And it's not just the absence of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter. There's more to it. In this video, I want to talk about how the Nuggets fell apart defensively, and what's next for Jokic and this team. Plus, we'll take a look at some other teams and their shortcomings as well. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. With or without Murray and Porter, defense has always been the issue in the playoffs, in particular their perimeter defense. The Warriors' 3 main guards, Curry, Klay, and Poole, combined to average 71.6 points a game, all of them shooting ridiculous percentages. In fact, the entire team was just so efficient. The Warriors had the best offense of any team in the first round, recording an effective field goal percentage of over 60%. It was the same story the year prior as well. The Nuggets allowed Chris Paul to have the best series of his life, 25 points a game on a whopping 63% field goal percentage. And Lillard averaged 34 a game in the series before that. When it comes to defense, an easy person to blame is Jokic. We all know it's a part of every team's game plan to switch him onto a guard and attack him. But this strategy works on almost all centers, not just Jokic. Heck, we saw the Raptors employ the same strategy against Embiid, yet nobody blames Embiid for his poor defense. Against the Warriors, the Nuggets' poor defense goes far beyond just Jokic. Among his teammates, he was actually one of their best defenders from most areas, while some of his teammates allowed their opponents to shoot much better than Jokic did. This is something that's hard to fix, because honestly, this team just doesn't have any good defenders. A revamp of their defensive game plan is imminent, but it's also something Mike Malone preached right when he joined the team. While the defense did get better with Malone, as the Nuggets used to be near the bottom in defensive rating, but they made a significant improvement, now hovering around middle of the pack. Still, every time the playoffs start, that improvement vanishes. You can throw whatever game plan you want, but the fact is, the personnel is not there. They simply don't have good defenders. Not everyone has the mindset or the instinct to become one. And on this Nuggets roster, that's quite obvious. With that said, this team has not been healthy for a long time. They were missing their second and third best players, Murray and Porter, all year. And had they been healthy, they could have competed with the Warriors in pure firepower. Despite their shortcomings, the outlook for the future is still very positive. This is what Mike Malone had to say about the loss. I go back to last season before Jamal's injury in this building. We felt we had a legitimate chance to win a championship last year. Unfortunately, it just wasn't in the cards for us. Jamal suffers the ACL injury. Earlier this season, Michael Porter Jr. suffers a back injury. When they're back and they're healthy, I think that's going to make us a deeper, more talented team. I'm excited about that, I really am. I think the future is very, very bright for the Denver Nuggets. Aside from the Nuggets, there's also a dilemma with the Chicago Bulls and Utah Jazz. You might think that these teams have nothing in common, but both of them had somewhat high expectations. For the Bulls, while the initial signing of DeMar DeRozan drew criticism, he proved that he was capable of carrying the team, at least for a few months. In those few months, the Chicago Bulls held the first seed in the East, and fans started to believe, man, if DeRozan can keep this up for the playoffs, they can actually contend. The expectations for this team slowly rose as the season progressed. However, over time, DeRozan came back down to earth, and so did the rest of the team. It culminated in an early first-round exit against a Bucks team missing their secondary scorer. I think some of us expected the Bulls to do better than this, especially because Chris Middleton was out. But they didn't, they still got stomped. DeMar DeRozan showed his ugly head once again, as he only had one good game out of 5. Overall, his efficiency plummeted, as usual. His true shooting percentage dropped 11% compared to his regular season. But I don't think we should be surprised anymore. Time and time again, DeMar's production significantly dips in the playoffs, as his playstyle gets shut down too easily when teams have time to plan for it. This goes back to the question, what's next for the Bulls? Of course, with the sheer talent on the roster, they're still going to be a playoff team in the foreseeable future. But they'll never get over the hump if their offense relies on DeMar. Perhaps they can milk the rest of his contract, make the playoffs a few times with some early exits, and maybe get lucky a few times. That's how I see their future planning out. This Bulls team right now, it's not even better than the Raptors teams he used to play on. Now, for the Jazz, the expectations were also quite high, just because in the previous season they were the first seed of the West. For a while, it looked like they made a jump from a normal playoff team to a contender. However, getting bounced in the first round, that's a huge step back. Finishing as the 5th seed was already a disappointment for a team that was supposed to compete with the best of the league. Perhaps it's not that surprising. This was the same team that could not even close out the Clippers after Kawhi went down. Even with Luka missing half the series, the Jazz fell down 2-1. A team that's always been praised for their defense got abused by Jalen Brunson. Zach Cram of The Ringer actually put out an interesting statistic for the Jazz. Through the past 6 seasons, no Western Conference team has won more regular season games than the Jazz. No team in either conference has a better cumulative point differential. At first, I was surprised, but looking into it, the Jazz have definitely been consistently good since 2017. As of now, they're the only Western Conference team that made the playoffs every year since the 2016-17 season. But you could look at this in a different way though. They've been so consistent that they remained in the same spot for all those years, getting eliminated in the first or second round. It would take a complete overhaul of the roster, which might happen sooner than you realize. There's already rumors that Donovan Mitchell wants out of Utah, and when he was asked about those rumors, he basically gave a non-answer. He said that you need to be happy with yourself first. Ooh, it's about to get spicy in Utah. Toronto is another team that I wouldn't say they disappointed anyone, but as of now, they're just a step below contending. The Raptors are very deep and the talent is more spread out. Currently, they got some all-star caliber players, but for Pascal and Freddie, they probably won't get that much better at this point. Instead, the Raptors' future success relies on Scottie Barnes' development. You can throw Precious, OG, and Gary Trent into that too. All of them are very young and have quickly developed since coming into the NBA. Another team I wanted to talk about briefly was the Hawks. I've talked about them a lot, but I think in terms of what we expected from them, this season ended in a much more disappointing fashion, especially compared to their previous playoff run. I mean, a year ago they knocked out the first-seeded Sixers and took the eventual champs to 6 games. That's a huge accomplishment, a huge success for Trae Young's first ever playoff run. This time, it wasn't as spectacular. The Heat defense suffocated him, as he had a horrendous series. They need a change in the roster. A few trades could do him some good, though Gallinari's contract will be hard to move. John Collins has also underperformed in both postseasons he played in so far. I guess this time he did have some injuries, but even the year before, his role drastically reduced compared to the regular season. Once Trae's max extension kicks in, they'll have less room to make moves, so they need to make some changes this summer. Anyway, that sums it up. Those were my thoughts on what's next for a few playoff teams that we expect more from. There's gonna be some tough decisions this offseason, which makes it super exciting. Let me know your thoughts on the outlook of these teams I mentioned. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.